Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode of Quincy Interviews. I am Quincy, and today I am interviewing Dhawal Shah. He is the founder of Class Central, which is an open source platform for writing reviews of online courses and exploring a wide variety of free online courses. And he is also a graduate of Georgia Tech's Master's in Computer Science program. He finished that in 2010, and he started working on Class Central in tandem with his software engineering career, and it just sort of snowballed from there. And recently he wrote an article which is just exploding on a Medium publication. I'll let Dhawal tell you how many views it has so far. But we're very thrilled to have you with us, Dhawal. Welcome.
Happy to be here.
So Dhawal, tell us a little bit about your journey so far and how you managed to transition from working as a software engineer to starting Class Central.
Yeah, so I'd already started Class Central like while I was working as a software engineer. Hold on, I'm getting in again. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I already started Class Central while I was working as a software engineer in Dallas. It was just a side project. I started it in my free time. I just wanted like a one-page site to just list these free online courses from Stanford that were popping up. So I just launched it. I made it open source on GitHub because I wanted something in my portfolio to show that I know how to code. And I posted a link or two in Hacker News and Reddit, and it kind of took off. So I started, I kept maintaining it. I didn't really think of it as a business for a long time. So this was at the end of 2011. So I launched Class Central at the end of 2011. Mid 2012, I started interviewing with different companies. I was in Dallas back then. I wanted to move to the Bay Area. I did a MOOC from Coursera on data structures and algorithms, and that helped me clear a technical interview and move to the Bay Area. Like I finally cleared my first technical interview ever in my life, and then I moved to the Bay Area. And when you're like outside of the Bay Area, it was just a side project. But once you're here, you sort of get that itch of like making, like create, startup. But I had no intention of starting something when I created Class, and it was just like for me, and hopefully other people will find it useful. And then you do the usual thing of like applying to incubators, and that was a year after I was here. Like I thought like this MOOC space isn't just like a few US universities. I could see that it was all around the world. All different universities across the world were creating these courses. So it was more of a trend as opposed to just like a fad. And then I started applying to incubators, and I got into one called Imagine K-12. And that's how I was able to transition from like a part-time job, like doing Class Central on the side, to a full-time career.
So you mentioned the acronym MOOCs, and I think a lot of people who are watching are familiar with it. Could you explain what a MOOC is, though, for the people that aren't?
Yeah, so MOOCs stand for Massive Open Online Course. So the people who coined the acronym didn't really mean what we are actually seeing now. When the space started, nobody was calling it a MOOC. The MOOC acronym was coined a bit before. But I think in 2012, everybody started calling it a MOOC. And so basically it means free online courses taught to a large number of people. And the ones that kicked off this revolution had like 100,000 users signed up at once. So when you're doing these courses, the forums were buzzing with activity. Anytime you had a doubt, by the time you reached the forum, somebody had already asked it and somebody already had answered it. So it was a very unique experience. You were taking you felt like you were taking a course with thousands of people all around the world. And there's no technical definition of MOOC. There is one, but nobody follows it. So it's mostly a buzzword right now, and it's something that for me it means means like courses usually taught by an expert who's from a university or maybe a top company. And yeah, and it's free. And or like one thing that MOOCs did is access. It's now possible for anyone in the world to learn from the best professor in the world in that topic, right? I think that's really one of the reasons why the MOOC space sort of exploded when it did, because people were eager to learn from the best.
Yeah, so on this topic of learning from the very best, what people generally consider the best universities in the world are a bunch of old universities on the east coast of America called the Ivy League universities. And the Ivy League universities, which we can probably try to name all 7 of them, right? There's Harvard, Brown, Cornell, Dartmouth, Princeton, Yale, and UPenn. Did I get them all?
There's one more.
What's the other one?
I don't know. Let me look it up.
All right. Well, there's one other. So sorry if you went to that school and we left you out there. But but those are the Ivy League universities, and they're generally considered to be among the best. They're all small private liberal arts universities founded shortly after the United States was founded. And these universities have been very aggressive about getting their courses online and participating in this, for lack of a better term, this MOOC revolution, the free online course revolution. So you recently wrote an article that included 250 articles, and that wasn't like some gimmick like, hey, fill in your email address and you can download a PDF of these. It wasn't some like, oh, here's a big database, go look at it. It was literally a list of 250 different free online university courses that people could go and take. And you also factored in the reviews from your platform. I've linked to that in the description of this, by the way, if anybody wants to click through and read it. How did you go about writing that article? And what role do you think these Ivy League universities play in the future of online education?
Yeah, so at Class Central, we aggregate MOOCs or these university-based courses from all over the world, from different platforms. And many of these universities are not on a single platform. They have multiple courses on multiple different platforms. So writing the article itself was pretty easy because we already do the hard work of maintaining that database, of knowing which course is offered by which university on which platform. So it was just like a small script and I could just generate it. So, and what I try to do with Class Center is like we have this core database and try to present a different lens on these courses. So, one lens is Ivy League. Earlier also we published another article in Medium on FreeCodeCamp was top 50 MOOCs of all time. So we try to, by doing these activities, we try to show like the diversity and who's offering MOOCs and bring newer people into the space. Like even though like in our world, maybe everybody knows what a MOOC is, but in general, a lot of majority of the population doesn't know that you can take free online courses from top universities right now.
So what's the makeup of people who are taking these courses? Because as you said, a lot of people don't even realize it. Are they mostly here in the United States, or what would you say the typical demographic, or maybe a few profiles of the types of people who are working through these free online courses would be?
Yeah, I mean, there would be 2 broad categories. So in geography wise, 30% is US. That's what our stats says, and then I think it's how Coursera and edX have also presented their stats as. For us, 30% is US. India is the second big, 10%, and then it's like a long tail after that. Sorry, what was your second question?
Yeah, well, what role do you think these universities play in promoting these?
Oh, sorry. The other profiles are like lifelong learners and professional career changers or career seekers. So I think those are the 2 big profiles. So earlier it started out MOOCs would like sort of they thought they would to change more of the traditional education, but it turns out like people who are outside of the system are the ones who are the biggest users of MOOCs. And the other ones are people who have already gone through the system are the biggest users of MOOCs because people with degrees are one of the biggest users of MOOCs, and that's because it takes a lot of self-motivation and you also need to be in the right situations because you need to have free time to do that. So it's at this point, MOOCs aren't really reaching the people who need it the most. From an age group perspective, it can vary a lot. I've seen emails from like people who are like above 70 to people who are like 13, 14, so it's a wide diversity right there. But generally it's yeah, people who are like career switchers are the biggest one. And that's the focus of MOOC providers too, because that's the one they can monetize.
Right. When
Uh,
you say monetize, like how are they monetizing people who take free online courses?
it's it sort of changes every year. But the basic model is around certification and credential. So the content is free, which is also some of the courses are now getting completely paid too. But generally, the formula is the content is free, but you pay for certifications. And there's another thing they are trying to create is credentials, where you do a bunch of courses and that amounts to like a mini degree. It sits between like a full graduate degree to and a single course. So it's somewhere in between those two things.
Right. So
Sometimes,
it's essentially like a track of courses you can take, and then you can claim like a special kind of higher level certification at the end of it.
yeah, and everyone has a different name for their certification. edX has two of them, MicroMasters and X Series. Udacity calls them nano degrees. Coursera calls them specializations. So it's a confusing world for a newcomer to navigate.
Yeah, well, which is where Class Central comes in. You aggregate all of these courses, and you have a bunch of reviews. Uh, what are some of the main reasons that Class Central has become so popular?
I think one of the things is we always focused on quality over quantity. It's easy to claim there are 100,000, 200,000, 1 million courses. It's but what we always try to focus on quality, and we curate every course for that we include in our list. So it means like we only have 7,000 courses, so it makes it much easier for people to find what they're looking for, and they don't get overwhelmed, with choice paralysis, or you just you just basically the thing that you're looking for has very limited options, so it makes it easier to decide. Like my goal is to make sure that people sign up for their first course. I'm not looking for like whole credential career paths or something. There's some people who do that, but generally, like if most of the world doesn't know what a MOOC is, I want to make sure like they have the best experience when they sign up for the first course. I don't want to end up like I think MOOCs might have a Twitter kind of problem in the future, or maybe it's happening, where people sign up for the wrong course. Like Twitter has this problem, but everybody has used it and decided it's not for them.
Right. So
Right.
a lot of that has to do with just issues with onboarding and the nature of Twitter being harder to use than, say, Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, right. And like immediate, so MOOCs can have that problem because you might end up like, let's say you do intro to statistics, and then you realize this is the intro to statistics at the top university, which is not the same intro as a Khan Academy, and then you might fall off because you think that this online education is not for me, because the course wasn't aligned to your interest or expertise level. And that's one of the things we try to solve with reviews, is hopefully the reviews give an insight on how difficult the course is, so that you don't end up taking something that you're not familiar with. It's still a very big challenge. The syllabuses are not that well written, for a normal user sometimes.
Do you think a lot of the courses, at least early on, like I know MIT courseware, which really became, I think, largely public in like 2003, 2004, they started just dumping like entire courses and like notes, not necessarily videos, in some cases videos. But do you think that they basically just, the attitude initially was, here's a course, it's just like the university course, but it wasn't necessarily sufficiently accessible to new learners, and the prerequisites were not necessarily sufficiently clearly spelled out?
Yeah, I think like the ones from MIT were just fully recorded in class lectures. They were amazing for that time. But for me, like when I tried to do them, it didn't sort of work for me, because first of all, like it's not it's the professor's job is teaching those people in the class, so he's focused on them, and sometimes like he's pointing to a board but the camera is on him and you can't see the board, and sometimes he's scratching the mic, and and a lot of time there's like talk about logistics on where to submit your assignment, meet me in my office hours at this time. And so it's the content is not dense enough. There's a lot of fluff in a university lecture, and it sort of makes it difficult to follow. And even the course that I did, which helped me get a job in Silicon Valley, it was a Stanford course, but the same professor had a course, an MIT open courseware style course, and I couldn't follow it. I had to wait for him to come on Coursera and create the same course, again. So what happens with MOOCs is like the video content is much denser. It's not 16 hours of video, or how many ever lectures there are.
So they kind of pick and choose like specific parts of lectures that they think will translate well.
I think they prepare more better.
Yeah.
They prepare, like professors have a script and they prepare much better. We did an interview with a professor from New Zealand, and he said that, he basically said that when you teach in a traditional classroom, you can just sort of wing it. You go in, you talk, and if you make a mistake, you can always fix it by having office hours and all that. But when we teach a massive audience online, even a minute wasted can add up, in human hours when you have thousands of students. So you really have to find, you really have to prepare, and you can't just wing it or it shows up in the reviews.
Right. And I guess if you're a professor teaching an online course, well, you've got a whole bunch of your peers who are able to tune in and see and kind of armchair quarterback, like, oh, he tried to introduce this concept this way, or hey, there's an arithmetic error. So I imagine being under the microscope also incentivizes drill down and know their stuff before they go in. And if you have a question, so in a lot of the MOOCs, they actually have questions from the audience as well?
Not really. I think it's where the forums are where it happens. Like originally MOOCs were sort of, the first version was recorded as the courses went on, but now it's generally like the courses are created and they're, even before the launch, like all the videos are created, so the loop isn't there. Sometimes the professors might answer in the forums. Some professors, like some instructors might do that, like answer questions over email, or like have a newsletter, but generally it's becoming a bit of one-sided. They do have a feedback period. Like Coursera has a beta tester program, and you can sign up for newer courses before their launch. So they do have this feedback loop, but once it's in the public domain, generally there isn't much going on there afterwards.
So we have some questions from our live audience. Hey, everybody who's tuning in, thanks for joining us. This question comes from Bo Carnes. Before getting your job, did you mainly learn through MOOCs, or did you get a more traditional degree?
Yeah, MOOCs didn't exist when I got my job. So yes, I got my job because of my more traditional degree. But one of the things my problem was, like, I knew programming, but I didn't know computer science, and that's where it became really difficult for me to get clear interviews, tech interviews. I turned down, because at Georgia Tech, getting interviews was not that hard, but I had turned down Google, Amazon multiple times because I knew I couldn't clear tech interviews. So that's where MOOCs came in, and that's why I kind of started Class Central, because I was actively looking for online courses that would teach me computer science or basics of data structures and algorithms. My approach of, it's good to have those coding interview books, but if you don't have your basic, you won't be able to clear tech interviews just by practicing interview questions. So I wanted to go back to my roots. Books, I had all the books, I have all the thick books of data structures. It didn't work for me. But the class I'm talking about is Tim Rough Gardens. They have renamed it, so I don't know what's the latest name, but I did that data structure class. And that's when I felt like I understood computer science more, or the basics.
Which computer or which algorithms class was that again? Was that did you say Stanford's algorithms class?
Yeah, they renamed it, so I don't really know the latest version of the name. So it's now a specialization on Coursera. Uh, but if you search for Tim Roughgarden, you'll find it. He's an
Awesome.
excellent. I would definitely recommend.
If you find it, we can put it in the description.
Yeah.
So I wanted to learn a little bit more about specifically online courses and what topics are covered. And I mean, your list of 250 different courses will seem pretty exhaustive, but like what are some computer science related and software engineering related courses that really jump out at you personally? Something that you want to take when you have time, or courses that you've taken recently that have really been worth your while?
Yeah, so computer science is one of the very well represented areas in online education, uh, because that's where it's directly related to career and has a business model. So we see more and more of these courses coming up every month. The ones I would really want to take is like more around AI and machine learning. Um, my favorite one I did last year was there's a University of Washington machine learning specialization on Coursera, and I did a couple of courses, and I found like those are like I prefer those courses to Andrew Ng's machine learning course for newbies. You like I'm more of a programmer, so I want to have the more practical application rather than I to know the math behind it. So in that sense, the first course is like machine learning, a case study approach or something like that. So it starts with the practical application, tells you like this is like recommendation engine, how you would build it, and it does a very good job of like building your knowledge based from like a application point of view instead of just giving you the theory and concepts. So I really enjoyed that course. I think that's the first course in machine learning that many programmers could take. um, I would love to do like this intro to computer science CS50X course.
Ah, yes, that's the Harvard one.
That's the Harvard and David Malan. He's an amazing professor.
That's extremely popular with FreeCodeCamp learners, with campers. We actually, it was part of our original curriculum. We would just recommend people go and work through it. So a lot of us are very familiar with that course, and it covers a whole lot of programming concepts and even touches on a lot of different programming languages very quickly. So it's a very good quick primer.
Yeah, I think like I just want to go back to like do one CS course and fix my basics and whatever I'm missing. Like I have not done the fun stuff like making games or something. I don't know how to make games, and or like some basic fun stuff that a lot of people get to do in like introductory CS courses. I know how to build website. I know how to save in database. I know how to do all those, render HTML, build, but like the big cool game stuff, I don't know. So I wanted to take that course to do like fun projects, and like good instructors really break down the problem really well. Like in your head, if you start, you think it's really hard, but when you see them do it, it's like, oh, this wasn't too hard.
If so, just to make sure I understand, you originally had a degree in electronics.
Yeah, undergrad in electronics. Yeah.
So you in electronics, it's still an engineering degree, but it doesn't actually involve. Does it involve a lot of programming?
No, almost none. Not
So
in
you
here. It involves a lot of programming, but not in India.
so you took it in India. Well, which part of India are you from?
I'm from Bombay, so it was a degree from Bombay University, Mumbai University.
Okay, awesome. And so you came over to the U.S. You came on a student visa to study at Georgia Tech.
Yes, that's what I did. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we have a tremendous number of campers who, like India is one of the biggest uh, countries in terms of people using FreeCodeCamp. I think it's second only to the US. And we have a tremendous number of people who frequently ask me like, how should I go about getting a job in a multinational corporation, whether in India or getting an H-1B to come over to the U.S. and work in a U.S. And often I tell them, well, consider getting a master's degree and coming on a student visa and then applying. That's the route you took. Could you talk about why that worked out for you, and whether you think it's a good general route, or what the best route would be for a typical person who just graduated with a non-programming engineering degree?
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's it's one of the easier route to get a student visa. Study here for a couple of years, get acclimatized to the culture, and then figure out where you want to work, on what it can be difficult to find a consulting company to send you over here and then get an H-1B. And given the situation now, H-1Bs are very difficult to get, considering how much competition it is. So it's easier to be on a student visa because there's a period called OPT.
Yeah, optional practical training.
Yeah, so you get like 29 months. At least when I got 29 months on OPT. So I got my H-1B in first attempt because it was, at that time there was the 2008 housing collapse after that. So in that time, the H-1Bs, people weren't hiring that many people, so I got it pretty easily. But now it's like a lottery system, and you might need a couple of attempts. And if then there's some new legislation activities that happen around H-1B, might make it difficult for like newcomers, because if the salary is increased, it's just one law is like 130,000 is the minimum salary for an H-1B. That would make it, that's not an entry level salary for a new grad.
Right, absolutely not. Even in San Francisco, I don't think most, even if you went to like Stanford and have a relevant advanced degree, you might have a hard time getting 130, especially because not only do they have to pay your 130, but they also have to pay $5,000 or $10,000 in legal fees to deal with issuing your H-1B.
Yeah, I've never made that amount, so I've never been. So in the new world, I'm not eligible for an H-1B. So,
well, let's ask hypothetically, if you were still in Mumbai and you had your electronics degree. Do you have very many friends who've taken alternate routes to work at like multinational corporations in India? Like we have a lot of campers, especially on our core team, who work at like Oracle and Microsoft and places like that, who are in India. What do you think would be some good routes for that? And do you think MOOCs would help?
yeah, I think there are some routes. I don't know much about them. I know people have come from, what do you call, who have gone to these companies, and they have sent them for here, and they've been able to find good jobs or switch away from that. But I don't know much about them. MOOCs can definitely help because there's still Google and all these companies which are still hiring. So if you can convince them, in India there is a lot more competition than US. There are a lot more people who are applying for the same job, apply with the same degree, or So if you can separate yourself with MOOCs, that's a big plus. And I think there was an article recently where it showed that people who do MOOCs perform better in job interviews.
Yeah, I read that article, and actually, I think that was the biggest determinant, not which school they went, whether they went to an elite computer science program, whether they went to a coding boot camp, whether they were doing anything like that. The biggest determinant was whether they took courses on edX and Coursera, I believe.
Yeah, so while that is still new, like it's still a differentiator. Like many people, MOOCs are very difficult to do. Maybe it's not a differentiator a few years down the line. So you can sort of like get a competitive advantage by doing some of the hard courses and showing like, you don't even have to do like technical courses. You can even show them that you're interested in non-technical fields, and hey, I did marketing, and there are many ways to provide value to a company, even as a programmer, and you just don't have to rely only on tech skills. communication skills are very important.
Are there any MOOCs that you would recommend? And again, if you're just joining us, MOOCs are just massive open online courses, basically free online courses. Are there any that you would recommend specifically for just anybody who is, maybe they already have a really good grasp on computer science? I mean, you can always learn a lot more, of course, but just some general courses that they might not think to take that you think would be really beneficial for them.
I think going across like the public speaking courses, which I have not taken, but it's something I want to do. Communication skills, writing is so important. So if you can do writing courses, I don't have any specific recommendations. There's one course called Learning How to Learn, which is really, really good about, it's more around productivity, and it gives a lot of tips and tricks, and it sounds very like a life hacker article, but it's actually backed by hard science. And Barbara Oakley, the professor who teaches the course, is amazing, and she has written multiple books. So,
and if I recall correctly, that is currently it holds the world record for the most popular online course ever.
yes, it is. Like, I think it has a 1.5 to 1.6 million students, and it was actually not launched. It was launched, I think, a couple of years after the MOOC space started. So it just, it even eclipsed Andrew Ng's course.
Andrew Ng's course being the famous machine learning course that really kicked off the MOOC revolution. That and Sebastian Thrun's AI class back in, when was that? Late 2013?
No, 2011.
2011. Okay, wow. So the timeline for those of you who are curious, 2011, the Andrew Ng, Daphne Koller machine learning course, and Sebastian Thrun's artificial intelligence course came online.
Yes.
Then fast forward 2 years, Class Central gets launched.
No, sorry. Let me correct you.
Okay, yeah, please.
So October 10th was Andrew Ng's machine learning course. There's no Daphne Koller. There were 3 courses. It was on October 10, 2011. Sebastian Thrun and Peter Norway's AI, Andrew Ng's machine learning, and Jennifer Wyndham's database class. These were the 3 courses.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize hers was among the first. I've taken that class. I love it.
Yeah, so that was the first one. Then I was doing the AI class from Sebastian Thrun and Peter Norway. And then on November 2011, at the end of it, I started noticing that there were a lot of free courses being launched from Stanford, which later on turned out to be from Coursera. At that time, Coursera and Udacity weren't called Coursera and Udacity. So that's why end of November 2000, I launched it as a side project.
Oh, wow. So you launched it right there, like shortly after those courses, like within a year.
Yeah.
Debuting.
Because the names Coursera and Udacity didn't exist then. So I'm technically speaking older than Coursera and Udacity. So they came into being in January 2012. You can look at the Whois database and see when Coursera and Udacity was registered, and it's like within a few days of each other in the first month in January, early Jan. So it's and one of the things, Class Central, the name comes from like these courses were on all these different platforms, a different domain name. It was like hci-class.org, aiclass.org, ml-class.org. So I did like class-central, I wanted without the hyphen, but I didn't get it. So I did classcentral.com. So that's the origin story. And 2013 is when I went full time on it.
Right. So you were doing this as a side project while you worked as a software engineer.
Yes. Yeah.
And that must have been pretty wild. So you worked as a software engineer for a total of 3 years after you finished Georgia Tech, but you launched Central pretty early on, and then just kind of did them in tandem. And at what point were you confident that you could leave your software engineering career and just focus purely on Class Central?
I think it was in like late 2013, mid 2013.
What precipitated that, though? That's a pretty big decision, and a lot of people watching, maybe developers who are working full-time, have a side project that's starting to take off. At what point did you feel confident that you could step away from your full-time job and that income stream and the security that it provides, and jump into the ring with like a full-time startup?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever felt confident, but it's something I really wanted to do. And I've been in the Bay Area for a year, and that's when it started. Like it started, and at the same time, MOOCs were super hot back then. Everybody was writing then about them, and we were already in a leadership position back then. Just by being early rather than being good at it, we were just early. And then, as I said, I applied to incubators, and that's what one of the incubators that we got accepted in Imagine K-12, which is now actually part of YC. Gave us $94,000. So that gave the financial security for a while. And, that was the trigger that, hey, I should quit my job. It took me a while to actually quit my job due to just paperwork and legal issues. The government actually shut down during that period, so it took longer.
Oh, wow. So that was during one of the situations where there was like a big, when the government wasn't technically budgeted, did they literally cease operations for processing immigration paperwork?
Pretty much.
Wow.
So it just further delayed it, my eventual, quitting of the date, when I can quit. Yeah.
Well, we have one more. Let's take a look and see if we have any other questions from the audience. I think Ben Thompson asked specifically, what subjects would you suggest learning through MOOCs, and what subjects would you suggest not learning through MOOCs? What subjects do you think would perhaps not translate well to the MOOC format? Other than obviously kickball, it'd be hard to learn kickball through a computer, for example.
I think generally MOOCs are very good at, since professors, very good at the concept and the fundamentals, and it's good to learn graphic design via MOOCs. But when they try to teach a Photoshop or something, maybe they're not the best instructors. So it's good to learn data analysis or something like that in MOOCs, but it's better to learn an Excel course on Udemy or something like that. I think those people are more practical. Lynda, Udemy, all those Pluralsight, even freeCodeCamp for HTML is, great. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all that. But when it comes to fundamentals understanding, those MOOCs are really good.
All right.
Tools and languages and specific,
So if you have this list of 250 MOOCs, but for specifically people who are working through freeCodeCamp, if you could recommend one MOOC, what would it be?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
If you have this massive list of 250 courses that are from Ivy League universities that are available right now for free, and we published it, it's in the notes below. But if somebody's watching this and they're working through freeCodeCamp and they just want one course, what's a good first course for them to cut their teeth on?
I think learning how to learn would be, it works across everything. I think the most important skill will be how you learn, not what you learn, because everything you do now will probably be outdated, in a few years. So the world is moving much faster. So I think I would recommend learning how to learn. And yeah, I think that's my favorite course. It really changed how I run Class Central too, because I really, even in my analytics, you can see there's an uptick. That's when I finished the course. Because when I do Class Central, before I was just a programmer and I could just do programming. When I full time, I had to do marketing, I had to write articles, I have to do PR, and you know how many different things you have to do, and it was very overwhelming for a while. I couldn't manage all of them. So there were phases when I only programmed, and there were phases when I only did replied to emails or did all the marketing stuff, which is not how you should run a business. Everything should run at the same time. But by learning how to learn, I was able to switch different things in the same day, and we made progress much faster after that.
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely shown you've hit a sweet spot. People are going crazy over this article. I just checked the stats, and I think we published this a day and a half ago, maybe less than 48 hours ago. It is currently at 358,000 views.
Yeah, my class center is going down. That's why I was like, if you see me distracted, it's because I'm rebooting the server.
Yeah. Wow.
It's been gone down a couple of times.
Well, you're truly good at juggling difficult tasks if you're able to maintain your crashing servers while you do this interview. So I just want to thank you again for joining me for this quick interview, and I want to thank all of you who tuned in from the live audience. Thanks again for taking time, and I would strongly encourage you all to take a look at Dhawal's article, and also to just check out Class Central. There's just a ton of great online courses you can take to supplement. I always tell people FreeCodeCamp is a very strong practical curriculum, and you'll get a ton of practice building things. But one thing we don't really even try to do, because it's really a task still for universities, is to try to teach like high level theory and just explain a whole lot of concepts that aren't necessarily well suited to sitting down and interactively doing. That they are still very much the lecture is a good format for learning them. So I would encourage everybody to check out again Dhawal's article down below in the description, and follow Dhawal on Twitter. He's constantly tweeting interesting stuff, and he writes a lot. He's constantly crunching these online courses and producing new analyses on them. He's got a huge data set. Again, Class Central is open source. You can contribute to it. I'm sure Dhawal would appreciate if you create an issue if you discover a bug. Dhawal, thank you again so much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. It was fun. Yeah, hope we can do it again sometime.
Likewise, have a beautiful evening, and everyone watching, have a beautiful weekend.
Bye.